Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. It's Ben Ennis Day. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
I'm well.
That's new hat. Oh, I feel like I do this quite often, but I literally
You
have.
don't need to start the show this way every time.
I
know, but I maybe try.
I literally
No,
just reacted in
I
the
know,
moment
but
because I hadn't looked at you.
It's getting tiresome now. Like it's actually kind of embarrassing for you that you're doing this over.
I'm just amazed at how many hats
Just
you
give it
have.
up. Just give it up. Just move on. Let's just try again. Hey Ben, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
I'm just kind of amazed that I hadn't looked. I'd been talking to you for 5 to 10 minutes, or I guess only 5 minutes. And
This
I
is
hadn't
not
even
how
looked
I
at you.
want to start my day.
All right.
This is not. I regret this. I regret this deeply.
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. You were off on Friday,
Yes.
and you were off on Thursday.
Yeah. I
So
was in Ottawa.
you had to react to Kyle Tucker and Bichette
Yeah.
in the way of you just call me.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't really talk it out because I wanted to save it for the show. Got some like tiny little sprinklings of our opinions, but yeah, Kyle Tucker is a LA Dodger, of which do you want to give me credit for first reported by me?
Yeah, I guess. Oh, no, wow, you thought that the good player would take a lot of money and go to the Dodgers.
Yeah, but everybody said there's no way that he's going to take a short-term deal. Like, he's a long-term. And I went, yeah, I don't know. He might want to reset the value. And, of course, nobody saw that much money coming,
No.
but.
I don't know.
So you're not giving me credit.
No, you get credit, I guess. You called it. You called, hey, guess what you did? Again, you thought about the worst case scenario and you predicted it.
Yeah.
And it came true. And you get credit for being the world's biggest pessimist. Way to go.
Yeah. Hey.
Way to go.
Biggest?
Yeah, among the biggest pessimists.
That's pretty good. I'm actually okay with that. Yeah, I think I've said this to you before, but this job is bad for me in the sense of I am an overthinker. And one of the things that you try to do when you're an overthinker is you're not supposed to just doomcast because that naturally happens, right? And I read something once that I really try to use as a bit of a credo. That's too strong. Credo is strong, but I don't know. Mantra is strong too. There's no
a thing
word
that I think about sometimes.
There's one thing that I think about from time to time, and it's kind of important to me, but it's not that important to me.
Don't put it on my tombstone.
When I start to doomcast, you go, well, there's no sense in doomcasting because then you just make it a reality now, and if it happens, then it's a reality later.
Yeah, double reality.
Yeah, it
double dose.
It doesn't actually generally prepare you for things.
Right.
Like the Dodgers signed Kyle Tucker, and guess what? It hurt as bad as I imagined it would.
You
It didn't soften the blow.
No.
I wasn't like, it's fine. I already doomcasted this, everyone. It sucked.
It is weird. And okay, so last week we did the things that we hate thing. I hate things as much as you do, but you're way more of a pessimist than I am. Like I am generally, I think, a sports optimist. Like you do this a lot in text, and it frustrates me where you talk about, oh, well, obviously the worst thing's about to happen. Get ready for the worst thing.
I also gamble on sports, so it's not really fair of you to say that because I am. Yesterday I lost a no joke. I lost a prop parlay because Colson Loveland he was my last piece. He needed 57 yards. 56 and a half was his line. Yeah. He catches an 18-yard pass at the end of the game.
And then his brain got
He's hurt.
scrambled. Yeah.
He finishes with 56 yards. Yeah, so I'm right. That's the thing. Sports gambling makes you the most pessimistic person because when you lose, you're like, surely this could only happen to me. Meanwhile, they're building casinos and there's a ad for sports betting apps on every single commercial break that you deal with. But anyways, go on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, you lost it?
No, the Dodgers got the guy that they gave $57 million to.
Yeah.
Who's capped out at 30 home runs twice a year. And I get it.
And who actually likes to look at his phone more than his teammates, apparently. That was a nice report. I liked that report. Bang.
You know what's a better cope than you thinking about the worst case scenario is like reading like Eno Saris talking about how his skill set might age so nicely.
I love that stuff. That's
and how his swing speed is actually it's just slow.
No, if you want to do Kyle Tucker hate content in terms of whether or not he's a bad teammate, not a foxhole guy, as one executive put it, or his declining skill set, whatever it is, that is actually that's my favorite sports content that there is right now because that's actually the opposite of the doomcasting. Is I also, and you would agree that I do this, I will hope cast. but it's usually the demise of my enemies.
It's a negative spin on hope casting.
Yeah, you know what? Now I think about it, it's still mostly under the guise of negativity. That's kind of a bummer now that I think about it. But yeah, I am dream casting, hope casting the downfall of Kyle Tucker, and that we're at the All-Star break. And one of the biggest conversations is that even him being on a 2-year deal, it's actually a 4-year deal now, because it's a certainty that he'll never opt out of this thing because he's so bad already. Well, God, that would be sweet.
How good does he have to be making $60 million a year, even if he's like the best version of himself, which again is a 30 home runs, very good player, but not $60 million. Like, how good do you have to be? And it's opt out after year 2, right? Not after year 1. I think it's year 2.
Yeah, it's year 2.
Yeah. So like, how good do you have to be where you're like, you know what? Forget the $120 million I'm owed over the next 2 years. I can outdo that on the open market, guaranteed.
Oh, I thought you were going in a different direction with this question. Like, how good do you have to be to live up to that deal with the Dodgers? And what's so frustrating about this is he just has to be above league average.
Sure. I mean, because they do have like a $70 million player on.
Yeah, that's it. That's the frustrating part of this, is that there's actually no pressure on him whatsoever until the playoffs, I guess, if he's a complete black hole. But they could win without him. They don't need Kyle Tucker, and that's what's so annoying about all of this to me, is that it's not just about the rich getting richer in this situation. It's that he does potentially turn them into an all-star team, and it feels like, okay, so I thought we were going to lead with Bo. That's the way that I had this prepared in my mind, but we're here, and let's just do it. I think when I'm reflecting on the Kyle Tucker situation, what's so frustrating to me is layered. But one of them is I'm not a proponent of the salary cap, and I don't think you are either.
No. The
Blue Jays have a clear advantage to the vast majority of the league in that they are trying to flex financial might. They spent over $300 million. They offered Kyle Tucker, was it 10 years, $350?
Yeah.
Which
would have been the 7th richest contract ever given out in baseball.
Yeah, like that to me is the frustrating part, is the Blue Jays offered him a contract that should have gotten it done. Yeah. Like that's the contract. 10 by 350 for Kyle Tucker is what you do when you go join a team that's trying to win a World Series, and that the Blue Jays, in a space where they are doing unprecedented spending, are still have-nots to the LA Dodgers. That's the issue to me here. And people have called him Kevin Durant-esque, right? Where he's joining the World Series champions. And the issue I have with that, yeah, KD joined the team that beat him, but the Warriors actually lost in 2016, and they grabbed Kevin Durant. Yeah. And yes, it did feel the exact same way for a lot of fan bases, where the outcome all of a sudden started to feel a little predetermined, and you had a lot of hopeless franchises and a lot of discussion about how the league was going to handle this. And much like I don't like big government trying to step in, I don't want leagues to step in, right? But the Dodgers have kind of forced Major League Baseball's hand to touch here to do something, because if you're going to be man, they spent more on Kyle Tucker than I think it's 16 teams.
Yeah. I don't care about those loser 16 teams that are like bottom of the barrel that don't spend any money.
You don't care that the Jays and the Yankees and like those.
But that's
teams,
a different deal.
Yeah,
I don't think those teams are hopeless. Like in a World Series against the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, in a year that I thought they were going to win 130 games and they won 93.
Yeah, I don't think they're hopeless,
and then went to Game 7. Well, like, does Mookie Betts feel like the same Mookie Betts? Freddie Freeman's almost 37, right? Okay, Shohei Ohtani is in his 30s. God, doesn't feel like he's going to. Eventually, they're spending now because they have to spend now, because this is the moment for them. Because eventually, and I know it sounds stupid considering that they feel like the Saudis with the LIV, that like it's just limitless funds, and even the Saudis though eventually are going to be like, why are we pouring money into this LIV tour?
Well, isn't LIV already dead?
They're still signing guys and it's still alive, but it's dead.
But the boys are coming back.
Yeah.
The PGA's like, give $1 billion to give all the Saudi money back to charity, and he's like, hello, sir.
John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau though didn't take the bait, and they went back. Anyways,
I'm shocked Bryson DeChambeau did.
Yeah. Patrick Reed wants back though. Anyways, you're getting me off topic here.
Yeah.
Eventually, this bill is going to come due. Those guys are going to be old, and eventually, $60 million for like a 4-win player is good, but not great. Eventually, that's going to come due. And also, So the Dodgers did kind of need Kyle Tucker. That offense stunk for the majority of the postseason. Did you see the projected outfield without him? Like, they got by and won a World Series on the strength of the incredible pitching performance of Yamamoto specifically, but like their pitching was unbelievable.
Yeah, heading
and
into the
somehow,
World Series, it was the best maybe ever.
yeah, and somehow getting by with that bullpen, which had its issues as did
Now
the
has
Blue
Edwin
Jays.
Diaz.
Yeah, but like even on the way to the World Series, oh yeah, they took care of the Reds. Way to go.
Yeah.
They took advantage of the Phillies literally throwing a ball away in extra innings of Game 4, and who knows if that gets to a Game 5. But it was not like a cakewalk. And again, goes to within an inch of winning the World Series. This is not the NBA because, yeah, Kevin Durant joins a Warriors team that loses in the finals the year before, and then literally they were unstoppable. What'd they lose? One finals game in the next 2 years? Like that was not fun. Like that was predetermined. Unless there was an injury that, gave the Raptors the championship in 2019, luckily. I don't view this sport the same way. Like the Dodgers are beatable. I don't think that it's fait accompli. I really don't.
All right.
Okay, is this where you're going to doomcast and say that it's over?
Listen, can something happen? Sure. Can they run into 2 sparkling pitching performances in, like, again, they were in the wild card this year.
Yeah, 93 wins.
I don't think it's impossible that happens for them again. Do I think that it does feel, though, amongst fans that it is fait accompli, that it feels the thing that you have to, I think, avoid as leagues now is the sentiment amongst your fan base of, well, nothing really matters. And when you have the Dodgers who can give Kyle Tucker a contract that everyone agrees is nonsense. $60 million a year for Kyle Tucker, a guy who you mentioned has the flaws that he has, is outrageous money. And no Blue Jays fan, remember when David Price got that contract and Blue Jays fans, for the most part, the smart ones went, well, yeah, you can't give him that.
Right.
Like that doesn't make any sense. To have the Dodgers be able to do that with every player that they want is an issue for the league, and it does dampen the excitement around the sport. It just does. And what I think has happened is a sport that has long had the optic of never have the salary cap, do not get the salary cap, do not involve Major League Baseball. Hey, players, hold firm. Usually, outside of, there was a little moment in the pandemic, I remember talking to you when they were locking it out, of, hey, the players don't really seem to have a great handle on their optics with the fan base because they were doing things that were so, like the language some of them were using.
Ryan Zimmerman was like, I have to get paid the millions of dollars and also have the time of my life
and
at all
Pilar
times.
had the feed my family quote, and it was just, there were some tough ones.
Yeah.
But ultimately, most people tend to side with labor more than they side with ownership when it comes to these negotiations. And now that we have salary caps in practice, I guess.
And it's worse. Like all the leagues, the cap is bad.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's so bad.
Who's enjoying an NHL season the same way, like looking at the standings every night? Oh, everybody got a point?
No.
It's participation awards.
Is like a half a point. 1 point is 0 points.
Well,
0 points is like negative 2 points. If you get 0 points, you're the biggest loser that's ever lived.
Well, and even the NBA thing. I can't stand the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
But the idea that you draft and develop all of these guys and you do everything the right way, but it basically becomes a certainty that you can't keep 3 of them because you drafted and developed 3 awesome guys.
Yeah.
How is that good?
No, it sucks.
How is that good for anybody involved? It's brutal. But it's gotten to the point where I feel as though the optics of this are now so unfair that it's a tipping point moment, that there's going to be owners, of course, the ones that are at the very bottom who are going to advocate for a salary cap. But if I'm, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but if I'm the rich owners who are trying to spend with the Dodgers, I don't think you're trying to get it to be a hard, flat cap. They're going to try to manipulate the language around it, much like the NBA does, where they go, no, it's the aprons. And you go, it's a hard cap.
Yeah.
So I think something along those lines will come in. But I think if you're some of those other owners who are trying to compete with the Dodgers, like if you're the Blue Jays and you offered $350 for Kyle Tucker and someone else paying $60 million a season, there's got to be a bit of discontent amongst your ranks saying, fine, make a change because I'll save some money and I can't pay those astronomical bills. And as much as we love looking at it where we go, these guys are billionaires, just spend, 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 spend. If I was a billionaire, I wouldn't want to give Kyle Tucker $60 million of my money for a season where he's going to hit 27 home runs.
Yeah, no, the billionaires become billionaires because, they don't generally. It's hard not to view this Dodgers thing as some giant Ponzi scheme that eventually, like when, like I said, these guys in their mid-30s really do start to fall off, that there's not going to be just like the rug pull of, hey, we're for sale. Who wants to buy the billions of dollars in future salaries you have to pay out for a team that stinks right now? It's the Dodgers. It's the glorious Dodgers.
They'll get bought.
And yeah, of course. And then you're like, oh, this is a lot of money for a team that the glory years are behind us. But yeah, of course, it's not the lower rung guys, the owners that are collecting all the revenue sharing that are most upset. No doubt that they're upset, but they're also kind of happy because they don't really care about the success of their baseball team anyways.
Also, this is kind of good for them in the sense of you get to play the card of, well, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like
hey, the Pirates. We went into this offseason thinking we would
could
become
give Kyle
spenders.
Schwarber $20 million a year.
And then this happens, and you look at your fan base and you say, well, don't you think that we should be getting a cap? I'm not even convinced they want a cap because that means there's a floor.
Right.
So some of those guys sneakily, if they ever make a public vote on what the ownership all tried to decide in terms of a salary cap, I wouldn't be shocked to see a team like the Marlins voted against it.
Yeah, but you're right. The teams that are competing,
they're annoyed now.
Yeah. So like I thought we weren't going crazy. Like we're going crazy, but not crazy.
Remember, we're a couple of years removed from being accused of collusion, trying to tamper down these salaries, and now the Dodgers are out here going, "We're not colluding with you."
But am I an idiot for not thinking that this is done? Because
it's not done. But man, come on,
okay, they've won back-to-back World Series, right?
Yeah, they've won back-to-back, and they just added 2 of the best 5 free agents that were available in the market.
Yep. But I don't think either is a guarantee, right? Like, neither is Kevin Durant. Sure. Like, I just don't. If that's your point of reference, Edwin Diaz has had some crappy years.
All right.
And Kyle Tucker, not that good.
What's most likely?
Obviously. But what's most likely is the Blue Jays and Dodgers are meeting in the World Series once again. And even if you run out every projection, there's not a huge gulf between those two teams, right? Like, Blue Jays have the highest projected WAR in the American League. Dodgers have the highest projected WAR in the National League. Guess what I'd sign up for? Like another World Series between those two teams where, what's the scenario where the Blue Jays make it to the World Series once again, and even as good as the Dodgers are, that you're like, well, they got no shot against the Dodgers.
No one thinks that. Of course you think you have a shot. That's not the point that I'm making.
I thought it was.
So to me, this is actually more reminiscent. Like, your points, I think, are a little bit more fair. But one of the things that I am conclusively done with, truly, is the notion that what the Dodgers are doing is good for baseball and good for the sport, because you're seeing a lot of former player pods, and this is the byproduct of having these, right? Like, they offer a perspective that guys like you and I cannot. They played in the bigs. They were a part of these teams. They root for players. A lot of them are close enough connected to the league where they see guys' financial successes and they are absolutely rooting for them. Like, if you're a millionaire, you're obviously rooting for other people that you know to become millionaires too, right? Like, that's why some people who win the lottery want to give their friends some money to start businesses so that they can
join
live,
the millionaire club.
Yeah, that they can enjoy the same fruits.
You don't want to be the only millionaire looking down your nose at everybody else?
No, especially since if you won the lottery, you're such a fake millionaire. Like, you show up at the millionaires party and they're like, so what industry are you in? You're like, the lottery. And they're like,
wearing your tuxedo T-shirt?
Yeah, exactly. You don't know how to eat their foods.
No.
You know, like, what was that scene in Succession where he takes Greg out for the meal with the bird? You're going to eat the bird with the bones in it?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, come on. How could you not? They put the sheet over their heads when they eat the bird.
I honestly don't remember.
That's crazy that you don't remember that scene. Anyways, whatever. Now I'm completely sidetracked. But yeah, I'm so sick of these stances from people going, what the Dodgers are doing is good for baseball. It's great for the sport. It forces everybody else to try to raise their game. Oh, it creates a new bar. And hey, the Dodgers are going for it. And you go, yeah, this is a different thing than going for it. This is now outside of the specter of what other teams can do. Like, Steve Cohen was supposed to be the kooky billionaire who was going to spend all kinds of money, and you outpriced him by a pretty significant amount. He thought $50 million a season for Kyle Tucker was cuckoo bananas land, and they went, I think it was BNS. He suggested a theory that I kind of believe in, which is that they went to Kyle Tucker and said, make your own offer up and give it to us.
Yeah.
And he did, and went probably thinking, there's no way.
No way.
With opt-outs after 2 years, they went, we'll do that.
Yeah, it's possible. No, I'm with you that it's not good for the sport necessarily.
No, this has now gone into a different area.
I will say, though, having a big bad is good. Like, I like having a big bad. I like having dynastic teams.
I do too. I like that too. But the way that they're doing it now feels fundamentally unfair to the rest of the league. It just does.
Yeah,
you're not speaking. If you polled fans right now of every team, and I'm just saying, well, you have to consider this because that's what the sport is. If you polled fans, 1,000 fans, how many of them do you think out of the 1,000 are going to say, I like having the Dodgers do what they're doing right now? 10?
Yeah, none. I don't think anyone.
That's what I'm saying. So the idea that this is like good, I agree with you about the bad. I agree with you that championships mean more. If the Blue Jays beat the Dodgers for a World Series versus if the Dodgers got knocked out flukishly in a round and then it ended up being the Diamondbacks and the Blue Jays, it wouldn't, the champagne wouldn't taste as good. And of course you would take that outcome. I'm not saying you wouldn't. My only point is that there is a allure to now beating the Dodgers that is unlike anything else that you could possibly have in baseball. You almost want to hang a banner if you beat them in the National League playoffs. Yeah. Like if you do the Colts banner, AFC champions or whatever. Yeah,
maybe it's the nature of the sport. Maybe it's the fact that
that you're a contrarian.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I also have watched them win the last 2 World Series, and it never felt fait accompli.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even winning in 5 games against the Yankees gagged up that 5th game so hard. That's going back to L.A., especially considering that was their first one. And even though they won their COVID title, if they hadn't won that year, you would have been like, oh, my God, this team is the biggest choking dog franchise. Look at all the money they're spending. And they got the best player, and they still can't win. Anyways, they did win it. And then last year, they won in 7 games after winning 93 games during the regular season. I've lived through the Warriors dynasty with Kevin Durant. That sucked. And it was like incredible that the Cavs won a game. And you're like, oh, if things go differently, maybe they could have won another one in that finals. It just was so over until you had, 2 catastrophic injuries in Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. It doesn't feel like that. And maybe this will sound stupid when they do win 130 games and don't lose a game in the postseason. But the sport is not that way. And I don't view them as a perfect team. Like, they're very good. Pitching is their strength. They got aging superstars. Like, how is Mookie Betts? Like, is he terrifying to you? Does that feel like the same MVP Mookie Betts? Freddie Freeman into his late 30s, does that feel like the same guy?
Sure. I'm not buying it for even $1. Okay. Do you think that this has a fundamental effect on Blue Jays fan psyche? Like, you lost a World Series to the Dodgers by a cleat, and then they go out and they sign the guy that everybody kind of had their hopes and dreams pinned to. And yes, there were some people that...
And the front office did too.
Yeah, exactly. Like the
front office, like if your question was, hey, did this team really need Kyle Tucker? You know who thinks that?
Yeah.
The guys that offered him 10 years, $350 million.
Absolutely. And so do you think that now with 3 seasons in a row where the Blue Jays were in and around the top guy, because I don't know how you feel about George Springer, because he did feel to me like the top free agent, but then there was the Lindor part, and people kind of went back and forth on which one of those guys you would rather have. But either way, Springer was the top free agent, and they did get him. Yeah. But it also did feel like, if I'm just being honest about it, there was this whole notion of coming out of the pandemic, everybody was going to be spending nothing, and the Blue Jays were one of only 2 teams with the Mets that were going to spend, and they kind of just split the free agents with Lindor going to the Mets and Springer going to the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and the Mets traded for Lindor.
Yeah, but he was going to be like the pending free agent. They gave him the contract, and either way. So you've had the Shohei sweepstakes, which were crushing. The Soto one, I didn't think that most people were really believing that he was going to come here, but there was at least, hey, the Jays are this, the Jays are that, and then this one ends up happening. Do you think at all there is going to be now, in terms of like the pessimistic outlook of the Blue Jays, that now fans are damaged for quite some times in terms of these free agent pursuits, or that it's the opposite, which is like you give out the $350 million report and you're thinking, well, eventually one of these is going to land.
I don't want to sound like this apologist, but they did give Dylan Cease, like they targeted the thing that they most needed, right? Would you agree?
Yes, but Dylan Cease was not the prize of free agency, and some people
was the prize of the area of need. Like we'll see
them,
what Framber Ball does.
Yeah,
over under 210.
I'm just. It's not even about the money for me. It's more so the idea like Dylan Cease was in a pile for me with a couple of other guys. I wanted Dylan Cease the most.
Got $100 million more than what Ranger Suarez got. Right?
Yep, 100%. But that could also be looked at by the Jays of, hey, you jumped the market so hard. I'm just saying, I'm happy about the Dylan Cease contract, but I'm not putting him in the same category as a Kyle Tucker. Sorry, or a Shohei. That's not the same thing.
They offered him $140 million less than they offered Kyle Tucker. But
that's what I'm saying. I think it's a little disingenuous to throw him into this pile because, I believe the Blue Jays can go out and get the Kevin Gossmans of the world and the Hyun-Jin Ryus of the world and the Dylan Ceases. Like, they've shown proof of concept of getting that guy already. Mm-hmm. They haven't shown proof of concept of going out into the market and landing the biggest fish that is out there.
Yeah, I guess, but the Mets also missed out on him. And it's also this freak show contract. It's okay, so the last two free agencies, I agree, are so different, right?
But that's what I'm saying, the freak show contracts. Like, can you get one of those?
Yeah, well, you'd like to get the freak show player.
Yeah.
To go with the freak show contract.
Yes.
$70 million, even though it's not $70 million to the Dodgers. $70 million for Shohei Ohtani. $70 million player. That's a $100 million player. There's no monetary value.
Shohei's on the LeBron scale of like, you actually can't really pay him enough.
Nope.
Because he's worth so much.
What he does to your industry. And
but it's true. They own Japan.
Totally.
Yeah.
Juan Soto, say what you will about his being a teammate or whatever rot starts with him in Queens. It's $50 million player. Hard to argue with his production. This is a guy that's been an MVP. He's carried a team in the postseason, stole a bunch of bases last year. Like he is worth the money. And I know who cares if the team wins? He doesn't produce $60 million. Kyle Tucker is not worth $60 million. So it's hard for me. I'm sorry, they didn't go to $60 million. But no one's
making that case. No one's making the case of like the Blue Jays should have gone to $60 million.
So then, okay. So the point is, like, are you damaged about the next free agent that they're in on?
I think that if you're a Jays fan and you're looking at this and you're doing the we got used for leverage thing, that's a fair take and a fair position to have, even though I don't think it's the correct one in this instance.
Yeah, I don't know. $60 million for Kyle Tucker makes no sense. $240 million over 4 years.
So I think, though, that you're making a good case here, that the psyche doesn't get damaged because you are looking at this one and saying, man, this was such a astronomical contract given for such a good but not great player that you shouldn't really be long-term affected by the outcome of this. This says nothing about Toronto.
No, I don't think it does. Because I really don't think.
I agree.
I don't think it does. Like, I don't think. Listen, you put Shohei Ohtani, you put Juan Soto in the middle of a lineup. Mm-hmm. It's not basketball, so it's not like you're guaranteed a trip to the finals. And hey, ask the Mets. Like, Juan Soto was pretty much Juan Soto last year, and then what they win 83 games. Like they're horrible, but those guys can carry you for weeks, if not months. And Kyle Tucker's a nice player. He's hitting 30 home runs, and he's got an on-base. Last year, he had one of his better on-base seasons, like 370.
Yeah, and he is a year removed from like a 950 OPS.
Sure, in 70 games.
Sure.
Like, he's never done that for 106. And that's another part. Guy doesn't stay healthy. Like, he's not a lock to be in the lineup.
My favorite thing about this conversation is that a week ago when Kyle Tucker
he was the best player. And do you know how good the Blue Jays would have been with Kyle Tucker?
I know, but you were doing this whole bit of
but that was when
what
he
has
was
he not done to prove that he's worth the 10-year contract, and then he goes to the Dodgers, and you're like, God, this guy stinks, and the Dodgers might be too old, and they might lose every game.
Yeah, but that was when he was worth $35 million.
Yeah, okay.
Now when he's worth 60, and I guess I could just take your tact is just give everybody all the money, the non-existent or the theoretical. Why didn't they give him $70 million a year?
But I'm not. That's not my tact. I'm totally understanding that they did not pay Kyle Tucker what they gave him. You know what, though? This is a good pivot into the next piece of this conversation. So, actually, we'll take a quick break. By the way, Adam Schefter reporting the Bills have fired Sean McDermott. Pretty big news. I've got Steve Palazzolo at the top of the hour and our resident Bills fan, Brandon Brown. So we'll be asking him about that. But, yeah, I have 3 more questions for you that we're going to try to jam in here. One is, are you happy with the way that they handled Bo, or do you think that they fumbled it? And then 2 is, what is his legacy now? Because I actually think that he's got a very, very interesting one moving forward here. And then 3 is, are you of the firm belief that the Blue Jays are a better team today than they were when they last played baseball? Not when they started the season last year, not when they were projected to be 4th in the American League East. I'm talking about the team that played in the World Series versus the team that they're fielding in Game 1. That's all next with Ben Ennis. All right, Ben Ennis is still here. So I think what made Friday especially devastating was that not only had Kyle Tucker just signed, but there was a brief conversation of, okay, well, Bo was still waiting. Bo is still out there. And yes, he's flirting with the Phillies hard. Poor Phillies fans, by the way. That's actually the worst one in terms of all of the free agent stuff, because you thought you had a deal. I saw somebody tweeted the, oh my God, you're going to hate me, Bo Bichette said that day. So, yeah. But Bo Bichette signs a contract with the jilted New York Mets.
Yeah.
A few hours after BNS and I finished our podcast, which I was like, God, you could
rendering it completely irrelevant.
Yeah, mostly irrelevant. So it begs 2 questions in regards to Bo Bichette. One is, do you think they mishandled it?
Yeah, they didn't handle it the way I would, because I think Bo Bichette is a good player and has been.
Yeah.
And I don't think, not that they haven't thought he was a good player.
Yeah.
But the respect shown to Bo Bichette throughout his tenure, and I'm not like, they're not spitting on him. Got it.
Well, we don't know if they even offered him a contract.
Dude, but like, doesn't that jibe with the way his tenure with the Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro front office has been handled? One guy for the early part of his career, Bo Bichette, to me, was the guy you offer the long-term deal to, not Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Mm-hmm. He was the guy that showed way more consistency. Obviously, like he's not Ozzie Smith, but like he at times, and it regressed, I guess. Defensively, he was playing the toughest position in the sport at an adequate level.
Yeah.
And he had a slow start to a year, the John Schneider first year, where he was abysmal, and then salvaged it with this incredible month and a half at the end of the season.
What a ride that was.
Crazy. He had 1 year that was awful, and it was an injury-riddled one where he didn't get a chance to recuperate, and then he just bounced back the next year. And, yep, he got injured at the end of the year. Still played 130 games. 130 games is like a full season for most people, not named Vladimir Guerrero Jr., because that is his superpower, is that he's in the lineup every day. But how many reports, and maybe it's just that they do these extension talks under cloak and dagger, but, like, did you see any definitive reports about Bo Bichette talking extension with the Blue Jays ever?
I still haven't, and now we know, like, Kyle Tucker, 350. We get this stuff, and for a player of his magnitude, import, and popularity, to not have a report of what the Blue Jays offer was at this point would suggest to me that there wasn't one.
Well, okay. Like, he hasn't been as unequivocal as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has in saying he wants to spend his entire career in Toronto. And obviously there was the dalliance, in San Francisco last year, and, a great organization maybe. But, like, by the end of it, and this year, obviously, he was pretty unequivocal about wanting to spend the rest of his career with the Blue Jays. But, man,
I think given the competitor that we know about him, he would have really relished the opportunity to come back and be the missing piece.
Sure, and maybe it's tougher for him with the Blue Jays to move off of shortstop full-time than it would have been with the Mets. But I think the money's right.
I don't buy that.
He's playing third base. Like, he's playing third base for the Mets, okay? Yeah. Was that ever a conversation? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But at what point did you ever feel like Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins viewed this guy as, we can't let him get away? And, ownership stepped in on the $500 million maybe given to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but that was also because the front office believed in the player. It just never felt like they thought that Bo Bichette would either age well, or that he was their type of player, whether that's the diminishing athleticism, maybe that's the defense, Maybe it's the way he gets his hits. Like he's a weird player, man. He does not walk. Doesn't walk. The knowledge of the strike zone, sometimes he looks like he has no clue. But I don't know who's been the most clutch hitter over this last half decade. And obviously this last season, he was unbelievable with runners in scoring position. Comes back on one leg, hits the home run that is lost to time, just like the Josh Allen game-winning drive against the Chiefs that result, and then 13 seconds, it gets washed away. You just don't get to talk about it.
Yeah,
it's like Josh Allen, first ever fourth quarter comeback game-winning drive against the Jaguars, except he had one.
Yeah.
It was negated by his coach, who is now fired, by the way.
Yeah.
Sean McDermott, 13 seconds left. Bo Bichette has the home run off Shohei Ohtani that's lost to time forever because they lost the game. But it never felt like this front office properly, and I guess the proof will be in the pudding if they properly evaluated him, but never gave him the proper respect, I thought, for the amount of production that he had as a Blue Jay.
Yeah. So hindsight's 2020, obviously, in this conversation, right? But I do think you and I were both of the position from the outset of this offseason, which was you got to land Bo or Tucker for this to be an A+.
Yep.
You got to keep Bo or you got to go out and get Tucker. My original position was pretty clear, which is I don't know why they're not just going after Bo. I don't understand why they're playing this cute. If the guy wants to be here and he's a realistic candidate to return, going out and flirting with guys that are far from a certainty like Kyle Tucker is risky business. As it went down the wire and Bo felt less and less like he was going to be a Blue Jay, and we sort of kind of accepted that this was going to be the reality of the situation, that it was Kyle Tucker or bust, I think rightfully people started to just completely focus on Kyle Tucker and had Bo Bichette sort of out of sight, out of mind, especially when the reports kind of kept trickling in like, hey, the Blue Jays were not guaranteed to land one of these two guys, but fairly strong favorites. And if the indications are that this hot and heavy for Kyle Tucker and they're the only ones offering the long-term contract and that's what he was looking for all along, it was hard not to get excited and swept up into the Kyle Tucker of it all. So I excused that for them as well, and they went for the guy that they think was better. That being said, yeah, looking at it now, it does look a little difficult thinking, what would it have looked like if you had just started this offseason saying, hey, Bo Bichette,
10 years, 300.
Yeah, let's get this thing done. I don't even think it would have taken 10 years.
No, maybe not.
So, but if they would have just said, yeah, we want to make you a lifetime Blue Jay, it certainly, even at 126 over, what was it, 3?
4 years. Oh, sorry, 3 years.
Yeah, I think it was 126.
Because he got 40 plus million.
With no deferrals, right? So he ended up getting paid.
Opt-outs after each season.
But if the Blue Jays just offer him that long-term security at the beginning of the offseason, and they do offer him, let's say, like 260, 265, it's hard to imagine he's not a Blue Jay today. And I'm excited about Okamoto, and I really do believe that he can be a lot of what Bo Bichette was. But if you're asking me, would I rather have Okamoto for 4 years, $60 million, or Bo Bichette for, let's say, 8 years, 10 years, 265?
Yeah.
The answer is plain, clear, and obvious, and especially considering Okamoto at third base is even more of a question mark than I think Bo Bichette is at third base.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So,
no, Okamoto's a total black box.
So that brings me to his legacy, which is, I think that, listen, he leaves here as a extremely popular player and a somewhat sympathetic player in the sense of he's not returning when he gave it his all to come back and he hit that 3-run home run. And, it was a really bad break for him coming off of an amazing season where, this is the one part of it that's driving me crazy about Blue Jays fans discussing, hey, well, they made it to the World Series without Bo Bichette. They don't win the division without Bo Bichette's season.
No.
He
saved the season in May when he hit that home run in Texas to give them the series victory.
Yeah, he was
Rangers.
spectacular before he had the injury. And there's two things that I would say to Blue Jays fans who are doing the whole, well, they made it to the World Series, they beat the Yankees, and they beat the Mariners. One is, remember how it felt when Bo Bichette would have to get replaced with a base runner in that series against the Dodgers, and how quickly the offense went from, okay, we're the most dangerous offense in baseball, to, are we going to be able to cobble together a hit? And two is, try to remember who they were for the entirety of the season, not just 2 series of play without Bo Bichette, and also how you felt when he was injured. People were going, oh my God, the Yankees are going to catch him now.
Yeah.
That the Yankees are going to catch him. And so removing Bo Bichette is a bigger deal than it would get. I think it would get placed if it wasn't for the 2 playoff victories, which fair enough. Like they
Yeah.
did get hot and they did do those things. But Bo Bichette is a spectacular player, and I don't think that they're better for having lost him offensively and replaced him with Okamoto. So, yeah, okay, we can talk about positive regression or negative regression with the likes of like the Anthony Santanders of the world who were a 0 for you last season, and maybe a guy like Addison Barger takes a step, and maybe you get a better season from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But, yeah, I think his legacy is going to be if they survive it and they thrive without Bo and they end up winning a World Series.
Yeah.
It becomes, wow, that was a really smart piece of business. And as great of a player he was, the Blue Jays walked away at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
If they aren't able to get over the mountaintop and Bo Bichette goes out and rakes for the next 3 seasons and Okamoto's just fine, but it really does feel like there is a void in the middle of the Blue Jays lineup, I think his legacy of we botched this becomes massive.
Yeah, and I think he becomes a sympathetic figure. It's
Yes.
weird because
No one's hating on him.
I think the Mets did what people thought the Blue Jays would do, which is, oh man, we thought we had Kyle Tucker, and I'm sure Steve Cohen thought even more than the Blue Jays with their $350 million offers, like $50 million a year. Like we got Kyle Tucker. We're gonna do. Oh my God! And then quick pivot, and I know they had previous conversations with Bo, but clearly their focus was in one direction, and it was like, okay, Bo, here's a massive deal, and you have to play a different position, but the money's absurd. And maybe the Blue Jays did come back to Bo and say, I know we spent the entire offseason thinking about this one guy.
It's hard to imagine that considering how quickly it moved.
Right, but even if they did do that, like you're Bo Bichette, and I know ultimately the dollar figure is probably the thing that impacts it the most, but you don't think there's a little bit of this, like my entire career, you've been focused on the other guy and his extension and making me prove it again and again and again. I only had one down year that had injuries attached to it, and then I bounced back and I was best version of myself, and then I slid into
it's a pretty fluke injury that happened to me.
No, I'm so sorry. And now you spent this entire offseason trying to chase this guy from over there.
Yeah.
And you could have had me, and now your pivot is to me playing a position that I might not be into playing.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll just take the money over there. And granted, who knows? Maybe the Blue Jays didn't even get to that spot, but emotionally, like you could see that reaction from Bo Bichette if that's the way it played out.
Yeah, it's a great what if he doesn't go home on that play where he was dead to rights.
Yeah.
He just stops at third.
Yeah. Rain delay. And then he came back to the game.
Yeah, I know. We thought he was going to be fine. But I'm just saying, if he doesn't round third, which we all knew having watched the season where he was really slow, was a poor decision. If he doesn't do that and he stays healthy.
Ooh, sliding doors.
Well, yeah, does he leave the Blue Jays? Like, does he perform well? Because do you think that a healthy Bo Bichette would have hurt the Blue Jays' chances? Yeah, like Andres Jimenez had some amazing moments. So, and so did Addison Barger. Like, so did Ernie Clement. Maybe some of those guys aren't in those games.
So you're saying that they win the World Series if Bo is healthy because he comes back to play in the World Series, but obviously a diminished version of himself playing a position that he's not used to and has to be.
Yeah, listen, it's butterfly effect. Maybe they lose in the first round to the Yankees. Who knows? But I think that if you stayed healthy the entire time and he does go to a World Series and they lose in the exact same fashion, right?
Yeah.
And they don't have the 2 series of play without him where they can point to it and go, well, we did pretty good and some of those guys got really hot. I think it is more likely he's a Blue Jay.
I suppose. It's just, to me, it's always felt like the front office hasn't viewed him the same way.
That's why I think it's going to be a real tipping point for the front office. Like, listen, the optics for them are high right now, and everyone's doing the Boss Ross thing, and they got extensions, and that's totally fair. They deserve all the accolades. I mentioned, I don't think that there's been a front office that took this many barbs from people who had just their plan work out to the extent of, like, they were so close to a World Series. They stuck with their plan. They stuck with their people. They deserve a lot of credit for being able to overcome that. But, yeah, if Bo Bichette goes away and is a killer and stays healthy, and you're sitting there with a hole in your lineup that you're never really able to plug, maybe they plug it, and maybe Okamoto is just a mega superstar. I certainly am desperately hoping for that to be the outcome. But, yeah, how this thing plays out, I think, is going to really determine the legacy of Bo Bichette in Toronto. And it will only be sympathetic figure, right? Like, he's not – but how oversized that becomes of, I can't believe we let this guy go. And then it has a trickle effect majorly on the front office where you go, why didn't they believe in this guy?
Here's some good news. If that happens, You just go get him in 2027 because he's going to opt out of his deal.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy. It's like his deal. Yeah, if he has a normal Bo Bichette season, despite the fact that $40 million is too much for what he offers in New York with that team, and if he's part of leading the Mets back to the playoffs, and he has his normal whatever 830 OPS with 20 homers, and he can passably play third base, like he's cashing in next off season, especially with the focus of the New York media on him for whole 162 games. I'm not saying the Blue Jays will be in on him then because he is. Yeah. I expect him to do that.
Yeah, but at that point of his career, you wouldn't be surprised if he's a DH.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, it's just 1 year difference, right? He won't even be 30.
Oh, you're saying
like his opt out.
Yeah,
his opt out is every single year of the 3-year deal. So like if he has a normal Bo Bichette season, do you think he's opting in or opting out? I think he's opting out if he has a normal Bo Bichette season.
Yeah, I agree with that take. What I would say is, if there was no contract offer tendered, and yes, of course, I'm of the position that money can cure things.
Yeah.
But it's pretty tough for me to believe that a guy like Bo Bichette, with the competitive streak that he has, wouldn't have been slighted by this in some way and be looking at it like the Jays would have to kind of blow him out of the water to get him to return, sort of thing.
Yeah, they come hat in hand. They're like, everyone regressed. George Springer had a 730 OPS. Dalton Varsho was not on pace for 50 home runs. Ernie Clement, is like a 620 OPS guy. Can you please, for $300 million, come back?
So, again, this is all being done in a lull moment, right? Like, there was a lot of excitement this offseason, and it's important to remember things like how critical the Dylan Cease signing was and how impressive it was that they went out and did that in the market. How impressive it was that they did go out and get Cody Ponce, who had a real market, and signed him to that contract. That Rogers, is not a perfect player, but looks like a pretty real upgrade in their bullpen, and a guy who's done it throughout the course of his career and should add a real something to this baseball team. And that Okamoto really does have very good player potential. Certainly the bat does appear like it is going to play in the major leagues, even though we don't know that with a certainty. Again, this is in the wake of some disappointments, which are Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette not being Toronto Blue Jays, and the premise that a lot of people did believe that one of those two guys would be a Jay. Not a guarantee, but the likelihood was yes. So I reserve the right for the tone to shift, obviously, as we get closer to the season. But one of the things for me was, with the momentum of the World Series, with all the added money at their disposal, which they spent a lot of, that you wanted to be entering the season feeling like you were doing the Dodgers move of stacking the deck a little bit and feeling like, hey, there's no doubt about it that this team is even better than the World Series team. Do you feel that way today? Like that they are no doubt about it better than the team that entered Game 1 of the Dodgers series?
No, there's lots of doubts about it.
Yeah.
And there's the regression thing. There's also, there's black boxes all over the place. There's the Okamoto. There's the Barger. There's even Alejandro Kirk, who I've always thought he was this player, but he has 2 years of sample of not being this player. And then he was back to being this player. Like, could he have the last 2 seasons?
Yeah.
And, he's still a valuable player because the defense, yada, 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 playing all the games. And got it. But, a huge part of this offense saved the season by the end of it, right? And huge, impactful bat in the postseason. What you've done is you've eliminated the buffer, right? There's not as much room for negative regression.
Nope.
I think there is, again, the most pressing need for this team was the thing that they addressed right out of the bat. And that's good on them. They recognize
the starting pitching is unquestionably better and healthier for the long-term future now than it's been in a very long time, considering who they have as their top 3 guys.
Yeah, and it's very possible you look at the way these starters stack up, everybody plays to their potential. It's terrifying for the rest of the American League, and maybe they're winning more games 2-1 than 7-4, right? This was the best offense in the American League from basically June onward. But the offense, I got major questions about, and the offense in the postseason was different than the regular season. It was even better. Like, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had one of the best postseasons in the history of the sport. Ernie Clement literally had more hits than anyone's ever had in the history of the sport in the postseason. Do I expect that to just okay? Now they're that forever and ever and ever? Not necessarily. And yeah, I don't think it's a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination that they're the best offense in the American League, which is what they were, and it's why they won 94 games and just barely won the American League East last year.
So where I'm at today is the starting pitching specifically is unequivocally better.
Still bullpen questions, though.
I agree. Like, we were talking about Hoffman and Little all year long, and those guys are still very important.
Jeff Hoffman's still the closer.
Yeah. And as much as people are doing the whole Jimmy Garcia thing is coming back, yeah, maybe. It's like it's 2 seasons in a row now where he's suffered a catastrophic injury that he did not bounce back from. And yeah, I like Rogers.
He's a freak.
Yeah, I've come more around on Rogers than the initial this is who they signed, because again, my brain, it's tough with this stuff. Your brain gets hopeful for certain guys, and then you pivot to another guy you weren't really thinking about, and
throwing 83 miles an hour and strikes nobody out.
Exactly, and you're like, I don't know. But ultimately, would you rather have him than Sir Anthony? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird to say, but yeah.
For sure you would. But I don't know what the gap is. Like, do you think
they do different things?
Sure, but I'm just saying from just everything, all things being equal in terms of how we're feeling about things. But then the part of it that is getting discounted from the World Series team, and I know he wasn't a regular season player, but how critical Chris Bassett was for them, and he's not there with the bullpen. And so when I'm saying, is the bullpen better? I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm just not positive that the bullpen is going to be 100% better than it was. Mm-hmm. And then the offense, to me, unquestionably, it's just, I shouldn't say unquestionably, that's too strong, but it is really hard for me to see a scenario where all these guys that were so red hot in the postseason end up translating this more onto next year. Like, I'm a Madison Barger believer. Whenever people have floated his name in trade conversations, I'm like, no. You kind of got to keep this guy. I really like Ernie Clement, and he gets added to the World Baseball Classic roster, and I think that he can be what he was last year. But when I look at the full lineup in terms of are they going to be terrifying? I don't know. Like, we'll see.
Yeah, and they were terrifying in the postseason. My God.
My case here is not, I think they're unequivocally worse.
No.
My case is just simply, you wanted to feel as though it was a certainty that they would be better. And I think in 2 spots, you can't really say that with complete certainty unless you're doing at least a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, and I would say of those 2 areas, the area that I'm most concerned about would still be the bullpen, right? I still think they're going to be an above-average offense. I think it's – and I know it's the nature of bullpens. But if you look at the track record of – I've done this before, but Shapiro Atkins bullpens, like it's not a great long record of success. A lot of faith in the rotation, carrying leads into the late innings. Can you hold those?
Yeah, hold them. Hold them is important. All right, subscribe to this podcast. Leave 5 stars. Steve Palazzolo next. We only have 3 football games left. I hate that. Personally, I think that the NFC Championship game is the Super Bowl and should be treated as such. But yeah, some great stuff that came out this weekend. But first, big firing, especially in this market. Sean McDermott, who most of my Bills fans buddies thought was going to be safe, and there's going to be another year where they just run it back with Brendan Bean and Sean McDermott. He is fired this morning. Steve Palazzolo, host of the Check the Mic show with Sam Monson and himself. What's up, buddy? How are we doing? Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, just initial reaction to the firing of Sean McDermott.
Well, I think with him and John Harbaugh, I was a little surprised. I think that we'd heard rumblings for 2 very successful coaches with elite quarterbacks, set up, and all throughout the season it was like, all right, is this the end? Is this going to run its course? What if they fail again in the playoffs for both coaches? I didn't think we'd actually see it kind of with you, maybe at least for another year, or without a specific coaching collapse, right? You didn't have 13 seconds. You didn't have a specific decision necessarily. But I think at this point, the Bills have just had so much regular season success and just can't get over the hump in the postseason. They're trying to change it up. And I think you have the leeway of still having Josh Allen. I think they still have a good roster. I know the discourse around Josh Allen is wild on both ends of the spectrum, like it is for many quarterbacks. But I think they're set up, and all of a sudden they have the most coveted head coaching position in the NFL.
Yeah, so I think you said a lot of great things there. My first thought with this is, if you're going to compare it to the Harbaugh situation. So my brother is a big Ravens fan, and the one thing that he was frustrated with Harbaugh, same situation. They couldn't get over the hump for a very long time, and he wondered if it was time for a change. And the only point I kept trying to make to him was, when you do have a culture and a guy that does seem to be operating it at a high degree, it's not something that should just be completely discounted. And it seemed, anyways, like with Josh Allen, that right now they also have an offensive coordinator that is working for him in that offense. Like, I don't know how many quarterbacks in the NFL you could give Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman and Brandon Cooks off of the street, and you still have a large measure of confidence that they're going to be able to go out and ball with those guys, right? Like,
right.
So I'm a little nervous about where the offense goes, but mainly Stefanski's off the board. Harbaugh's now off the board. I don't look at the coaching, the guys that are available right now, the head coaches in the NFL pool, and say, well, there's 2 or 3 guys that would be, no doubt about it, incredible upgrades for the Bills. So while I understand wanting to move on after so many years of not getting over the hump and feeling like you did need to blame or change something, I am pretty curious about what the pivot is going to look like and what names they would have on their board to start.
It's ironic we're going to have 10 head coaching opportunities now in the NFL, and college football felt similar. The exact thing that you described, which was like all these big name college quarterbacks or, very consistent winners in college got fired. And my first question was like, who's replacing these guys? Because a lot of, a job like Penn State, I think they were thinking, well, we'll get the next big name. And that never really came through. Not that they didn't get a good coach in Matt Campbell. So it's kind of a similar question here. Like, what's better? What's the next pivot here? It is a great question. Now, do they go Joe Brady and just straight up elevate him so you keep the offense intact? He's already getting some head coaching buzz and interviews. Do you bring Brian Daboll back and just say, look, he's worked with Josh Allen and quote unquote failed coaches? Often it's usually tied to a lack of a quarterback situation. Was that the case with the Giants with Daniel Jones and then just, an injured Jackson Dart? Do you try to get a guy like Jesse Minter from the Chargers, who's already interviewed for every other job, and go with the next defensive-minded head coach and try to, pair him, keep Brady along? I mean, I don't know what the options are for the Bills, but I'll say this. I think we've learned a lot through the years, especially the Belichick-Brady thing, where Belichick couldn't really win without Tom Brady on either side of Brady's career, 20 years in between. And that's not to knock Belichick. It's just to say, look, that elite quarterback, no matter how Brady was found, or no matter how he was developed, once you have that, it is a cheat code. It doesn't mean anybody could just step into the head coaching position, but it is like, I'm still confident. Like, the Bills are still going to have a win total of 11.5, 12 wins next year, right? Yeah. And no one's going to go in lacking confidence because of the foundation they have with Josh Allen. So I think that makes it, say, easier for the Bills to say, okay, we at least have that. We've got some good foundational pieces. I think they've done a decent job with the roster. I know Brandon Beane takes a lot of heat, but I don't think he necessarily deserves that outside. If you want to criticize, say outside receiver, fair. But I think it's still a good team, good roster. You've got one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best right now in the NFL. And the thought is, hey, next man up can handle this, right? And there's less pressure on the next head coach through the lens of, you don't have to find a quarterback. You don't have to develop a quarterback. You have Josh Allen. That should at least have a baseline really high, and then, hope that this next hire is the guy that can get you over the hump in the playoffs.
So the Brandon Beane thing that you mentioned is, I think the really interesting part in this is, you would assume that he is safe, given that they moved off of the head coach, that he is going to continue, that it isn't a situation where they remove the GM and then allow him to make the decision on whether to keep Sean McDermott or not. Usually they don't end up doing that. But before we get into these games, you think that they've done a pretty decent job with the roster. I would agree. I think that we do tend to point out a team's flaws when they're this close, more so than we celebrate the good things about them. But I would say that, yes, receiver is one where they haven't really been able to find anything since the Stephon Diggs void. But two is that, the Bills just have always felt small in their front seven and their linebackers. Just it's never really an overly impressive group, and you do feel like you can run on them. And like if I point to that Jags game, for example, I left that one feeling like Liam Cohen kind of botched it by not continuing with the run game more and leaning too much on Trevor Lawrence. And if that he had a do-over and did run the ball more, that maybe they come away with that victory. So if you're Brandon Beane, what do you think the first major adjustment is on this roster? Like outside of hiring a coach, what needs to improve for the Bills for them to get over the hump?
So yeah, I agree on the defensive line thing. I mean, that does feel like an annual issue where their weakness is the run game. It doesn't always get exploited. They've been pretty good against the pass, and let's be serious, the defense did get picked apart at various points in the playoffs. Now, I think it's also easy to say, well, 2023 AFC Championship against the Chiefs, or divisional round against the Chiefs, they were down like 6 defensive starters. And last year they lose Christian Benford in the very first game. So they've had those issues as well. But I think more bodies on the defensive line. You could tell they tried to start doing that last year with the 3 draft picks in the first 4 rounds on the defensive line, trying to bring in a Joey Bosa, which I don't think worked out in the playoffs in particular. So they've done a nice job building the offensive line in Buffalo. They have a couple guys they got to make sure that they retain. They got to figure out the outside receiver situation. That has been an issue. They've still created a lot of offense, but it leaves a hole. And I think more just defensive line bodies and depth, because those are the things that you just don't want to run out come playoff time. Ironically, this year it was receiver that they ran out of, that they probably didn't even have in the first place come playoff time. But in the past, it had been defensive depth that had really killed the Bills when they're trying to beat the Chiefs, when they're trying to beat the best teams in the league. And so I think that's where you got to go back to the trenches for Buffalo. And by the way, that's a McDermott style defense, a little bit undersized. You're gonna play lighter up front to stop the pass, and that's the other piece I wonder in this change. What does a new defensive scheme look like? Do they focus more on getting bigger bodies up front and stopping the run a little bit better than they have in the past?
So from this game, was it a catch?
No, it is absolutely not a catch. That is. It's a very clear interception. I think it's very disingenuous, the number of people that are trying to compare it to Devontae Adams' play yesterday.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't even believe serious football people have posted that.
I'm begging people to stop using screenshots for catches. Just watch the play. When you watch the play in normal speed, here's what I'll say. If they had called that a catch, the other side of the internet would have lost their mind. And I think the same exact people that are posting screenshots that it's a catch would have lost their minds and said, watch this play in full speed where Brandon Cooks barely has the ball. The DB comes up with it. Great play, Jaquan McMillan. And you would say, you're giving him a catch and putting him into field goal range in overtime to win the game. You're just handing the Bills the game. The NFL's rigged. They want Josh Allen in the AFC Championship. That's what everybody would be talking about today. The real-time play looks nothing like a catch, and I think that's pretty clear.
So my take on it is kind of similar to yours, where I think that if you had just taken it, look at that play, and asked which one of these decisions would have been more egregious, overturning the call is 11 out of 10 the more egregious of the two. That if they would have ruled it and said, hey, we're actually flipping this, and now the game is essentially over on this play, most football fans would have said that there's some sort of injustice done. Like the guy comes away with the football, you have to survive the ground. Yes, there is a screenshot that looks as though he has it, but to your point, I just don't think that actually tells the story. When I first saw the play happen live, I thought it was an interception. When they started to break it down slowly, I did think, okay, maybe this is going to be a catch. I wasn't 100% sure when they were showing a couple of the different angles. But then when they ultimately made the decision and they moved on from it quickly, I don't care how long it took. Like, it was
they made the right.
Yeah, so sure. Could they have taken more time from an optic standpoint? I guess so, but it doesn't really change the result at the end of the day. And so that one to me was kind of, I mean, I think it was really overblown because it is a fan base that has dealt with a lot of trauma in the postseason, and they're looking for anything to point to. Same thing goes for the pass interference calls, where I'm like, the first one's a difference of 2 yards because Joey Bosa makes a really stupid play. So, okay, move him back 2 yards. And then the second one, like Trey White doesn't get his head around and he chops a guy clearly before the ball is there. It's a pass interference. So Yeah, we can litigate different penalties throughout the game in terms of what could have been and what should have been a call versus what that one was. But if you're just asking me, like, hey, were those penalties? They were. They were penalties. So it sucks for the Bills. It's a heartbreaking loss. But ultimately, what I think I'm more focused on and what I want to ask you about is how you are evaluating Josh Allen after that game. Because this is a guy who entered the game with the longest streak of not throwing an interception in a postseason game. There's the play at the end of the half where he fumbles the football. Many people just saying that's on the coach because they should have called a knee, but he did run with it. He did not have ball security. He throws a couple of interceptions in this game. I've seen the point, and I do think it's fairly valid of if this was Lamar Jackson, what would the discourse be versus if it is Josh Allen? But yeah, where do you land on Allen's play in this game?
I think the Lamar Jackson comparison is disingenuous. I mean, there's enough people commenting on sports these days that you could find any opinion that you want.
That's fair.
And I've found enough opinions out there where people think that Josh Allen's the golden boy who never gets criticized. And then there's people on the other side who are like, until he wins, it's all his fault. And it's like, the truth is somewhere in between. Yeah. This is insane. Like, it doesn't have to be, one side or the other. This isn't the first time sports media has existed. The first 8 years of Peyton Manning's career, the same question, is this the best regular season quarterback of all time? Is he going to be the next Marino? Is he even going to make a Super Bowl? And then they finally get the defense together for a 4-game stretch, and the Colts win a Super Bowl where Peyton Manning has 3 touchdowns and 7 picks in 4 games. 3 touchdowns and 7 picks in 4 games was Peyton's first Super Bowl run. And all of a sudden, okay, he's fine now. So that's how things change. So I think with Allen, look, they don't get this far in the playoffs without him. I do think they have a good, and so that's the other part. Like, I don't think there are Bills fans out there or fans out there who think that he's just dragging this, 28th ranked roster to the playoffs every year, and it's a minor miracle that Superman can even do that. I don't think that's true either. They have a good pass defense, a good offensive line. Say what you want about the pass catchers, but 2 excellent tight ends, Shakir, they're just a yak-centric team with, by the way, the leading runner in the NFL and James Cook. So it's a good team. It becomes a very good team with Josh Allen. They don't get there without him, but it's the same thing you go back to. If you want to be Brady, Mahomes, forget multi-Super Bowl winner, just one-time Super Bowl winner, you got to make the individual plays. And unfortunately, at the end of Josh Allen's playoff games, you go back and say, okay, he missed Dalton Knox on what could have been a walk-off touchdown. He's got the play before the half, which was egregious. Even if they call a play, it's like heave it deep or just go slide. It was a 3-point fumble. You have the other interception right after a turnover. The Cooks interception doesn't matter because that's also lazy if it's like, well, he had 4 turnovers. Well, one was a strip sack that he can't control in his throwing motion. One is a 3rd and 11, 50-50 ball, let's say, that at worst should fall incomplete, then you're punting. Mm-hmm. And it works as an arm punt if it does get intercepted. If it gets completed, you're winning the game. It's perfectly fine. So the idea of just like counting turnovers, that's disingenuous too. So that's not the reason why Josh Allen's, taking heat today. It's more some of these other misses. And then you say, okay, well, 23 against the Chiefs, he misses an open touchdown in crunch time, or he didn't get the QB sneak against the Chiefs last year, or, he didn't have, they didn't have answers on the final drive against Spags, and he's got to chuck it up to Kincaid when they can't handle the blitz and have no answers. So you could go back and find those individual plays and say, all right, if you want to be among the best, if you want to be at Mahomes level, a Brady level, you got to make these plays. And I think that part's fair, but it's also unfair to be like, he's a choker and he's the worst. He'll never do it. He's got the most wins without going to a Super Bowl. There's some truth in that, but it's somewhere in between. They're not here without Josh Allen even having those opportunities. And yeah, he's seemingly 1 to 2 plays away every single year. And that's something that's got to change.
I think he will get over the hump. I do think that he shares a large portion of the blame for that loss, but I also don't think that this should be a referendum on whether or not he is a choker and can't do it. That's just where I'm at with it. Like, to me, the biggest screw up in the game is if you're the Buffalo Bills and you're down 7 points to the Denver Broncos, you just don't need to be acting desperate heading into the half. And that decision with 18 seconds left and no timeouts to try and force something down the field and hope and pray that Matt Prater can kick a field goal for you, I just think all around, that's kind of choker stuff to me. That's where you're pressing a little bit as a coaching staff. And I think that's where you're pressing a little bit as a quarterback, where you're trying to run and make a spectacular play. And when we criticized Allen at the beginning of his career for like trying to put the cape on at times that he just didn't need to, and you see this with some of the younger quarterbacks that, like Caleb Williams, I think suffered from that this weekend. Josh Allen, I don't want to see him do that kind of stuff at this point of his career. Like, I don't need to see you try to take off and run and hold the football loosely at the end of a half when ultimately all you need to make sure that happens is that you don't give up more points. So I think he deserves the criticism for the game, but the idea that this is somehow a indicator of what he can and cannot do in the NFL, I think is, a little overstated. So the Broncos side of this, I don't even know how you can be excited. I guess you're happy that Bo Nix did show up on a big stage and delivered, but also you've got Jared Stidham now in an AFC championship game against the Patriots. I think the question would be, did the defense show you enough flaws in that game that they're not to be trusted in terms of like finding a way to hold the Patriots down? Because that was probably the most disappointing part of it for me if I'm a Broncos fan, is like the defense that everybody went into the game going, most quarterback hits, most pressures, most sacks. They looked very, very, very human.
I would say I think the Broncos have shown that weakness for the last month and a half, to be honest. Not every game, because they played, Chiefs third stringer. They played the Raiders. But if you go back to, was it Monday night against the Commanders they played, or Sunday night game where they went to overtime against, against Marcus Mariota. The first half to three quarters against the Packers in that big game when Micah Parsons went down, they were getting beat up. So I thought the Broncos had been showing some weakness on the defensive side of the ball. There are games the pass rush, I don't want to say it disappears. It's just less dominant. They show up. I mean, there's always a few plays. Nick Bonito, he's just too fast off the edge and you get a strip sack, but it's just not as consistent. And I think teams have found a few more holes running against them and, in the back end in coverage. So, I still think the Texans are the best defense in the league. I think they were on their way to being a historic championship caliber defense. Just they, blew it offensively. So I don't think the Broncos are in that tier. So, I'd say there's some concerns for them defensively. Now, at the same time, you get this idea, okay, we've got Jared Stidham at quarterback. We're going to have to step up, play our game. Like, they've had high-end games, Denver. They have high-end potential. They do have multiple players who can get after the quarterback. They're very good on the back end. They're, ball hawk safeties and, good outside corners who are going to play tight man and make things close, right? As far as whether it's Patrick Surtain, Riley Moss, like they're going to make you earn it for the most part. And so they're capable, but I've definitely had some concerns about Denver's defense. And, the only optimism for Jarrett Stidham is when I rattle off his preseason stats for this year. He was like 30 of 38 for almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns this year in the preseason, passer rating of 143. That's the only bit of optimism maybe for the Broncos. Maybe, just maybe, in year 6 here or whatever from Jarrett Stidham as a veteran who could play within himself, Sean Payton dialing it up. Maybe you could have one of those games, hold him to 25 passing attempts, try not to screw it up, and trust the defense to pull the upset here.
So the Seattle game. Dominant performance, really quality play from their defense. Kenneth Walker, outstanding. The run blocking, spectacular in this game as well. But my overarching question from this is, did Seattle prove anything new?
I mean, dominating the Niners, who are still, I want to say they're a good team. They've certainly overachieved all year. I also think there's a matchup dynamic here where Shanahan's scheme, Brock Purdy, every time they run up against Mike McDonald's, it looks completely different. And I do think some of that exists in football where you just have matchups that don't seem to work well. And this goes all the way back to Purdy facing the Ravens on Christmas night back in 2023. He had 4 picks. They just didn't have good answers there. Purdy has not had good success against Mike McDonald's defense. So that's going to be a fascinating question for the Niners going forward. I think Seattle proved it's kind of like the Ravens a couple years ago. When you have an advantage, they have the 3-phase ability to just pour it on. Offense, defense, and special teams, which, by the way, Seattle's got the best special teams unit in the NFL this year. And I rarely talk about special teams, but if it's at the extreme end of good or bad, I think it tends to matter. And that's going to be interesting for Seahawks-Rams because the Rams are at the bad end. Seahawks are at the good end. It's part of the reason why Seattle even had the number 1 seed because of the Thursday night game, the Rashid Shaheed punt return, and then Shaheed does it again the other night. So I think Seattle's just that type of team where if they're better, they can dominate. We've seen them in many games, score 30, 40 points in a hurry, with both sides of the ball contributing, all three sides of the ball contributing. So I don't know if it's learning something new as much as, look, everyone else was pretty much struggling through their games. We had great games, and they went and dominated an overachieving Niners team who just ran out of juice, ran out of warm bodies basically on both sides of the ball at this point. But you got to take care of business, and I think Seattle did it emphatically.
They did, they get the credit for that. Like, you play who's in front of you. I'm a Seahawks fan, unabashedly. I was living and dying with that game. I was still nervous even heading into the second half. That said, that Niners team coming off a short rest with the amount of injuries that they ended up having, Seattle being the rested team at home, for me, just the biggest question was simply not could the defense play well against Brock Purdy again. It wasn't could they run the football effectively against the Niners group that was, I think, 30th in the postseason against the run. And through the last 12 weeks of the season, they just were not good in that facet. You want to see Sam Darnold stress tested. And he made the one nice touchdown pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba on the one play. So you go, okay, there's credit there. But I think the problem for me is you just didn't really stress test him. There wasn't a moment where he needed to make a play. There was never a time where it felt like, okay, he's got to make a big third down throw here, and it's going to be with pressure in his face. It just, he cruise controlled to it. And so now as he heads into this matchup against the Rams, I guess that's my biggest one is did the team prove they are who we think they are? Absolutely they did. The quarterback to me just remains a complete black box against the Rams.
He does. I mean, especially what happened in the playoffs last year against the Rams, and then the two games this year, the first 6 quarters, he had 6 interceptions. And now, I think him turning the corner in the second half and in overtime was huge. Because if they had not done that, not only would they not have the number 1 seed, we would still have that question. So the question that you have about, hey, was he stress tested? It's the playoffs. We saw him implode last year in his last 2 games, week 18 and then the wild card round. I think he at least answered it in the second half and overtime against the Rams in the Thursday night game. Made some big throws. It wasn't perfect, but big pass to Cooper Kupp, long touchdown.
Yep.
Leads the game-winning drive. They get the 2-point conversion. Boom, they've got the number 1 seed. And so I think that's at least a positive. Where look, it is a mental game too, right? It's a physical and mental game, and we sometimes think, oh, they're all just robots, and then other times we think, oh, they're like little leaguers who just get nervous, right? Oh, they get nervous under pressure. Again, truth is somewhere in between. You do have players who press and they see similar situations and don't handle it, whereas the GOATs of all time, the Bradys and Mahomes of the world, it's like, they're cool under pressure. But I think Darnold at least answered some of that in the last Rams game. I think that's huge. It wasn't a great start to finish game. They got him a couple times, misread coverage for 2 picks, including one in the red zone, 1 pick six or near pick six. But he did bounce back, and I think that's going to really that is a huge confidence boost heading into this game, that he's at least done it against this Rams team that overall had his number for the last 2 years.
How do you feel about the CJ Stroud of it all then? Because, no Nico Collins, loses Schultz early. The offensive line is banged up. They can't run the football a lick for the vast majority of the football game. But you mentioned it. They had a historically great defense, one that I thought was good enough to win them a Super Bowl with just average to competent play from their quarterback. I think that, there is very much a scenario here where if he just throws 2 interceptions, they win that football game.
Yes.
I
really agree.
I really don't know how I know that these are hot take times, and I can tell that you are the type that pushes back on this kind of stuff, but it's hard to come away from CJ Stroud's performance and feel like a real measure of confidence that he has that the shine that was on him during his rookie year has now fundamentally changed.
No, I mean, the Stroud one is the one I can buy into a little bit. I think, if you go all the way back to the college evaluation of CJ Stroud, I was watching all of his film in college, and I'm thinking, I don't like the way he handles pressure. He has a lot of panic throws, but sometimes he'll stand in there and make it. It's very inconsistent. And then you get to the Georgia game in the college football playoff where he's facing this legendary college defense, and it was like every every negative, everything in the negative column, he just goes and says, I fixed it. I got it. I can handle pressure. I'm going to make plays outside of structure. And he has one of the best games you've seen in college over the last 8 to 10 years against a great defense. And so the question in the draft process was, okay, is he a one-game wonder, or did he actually show he could do all these things that we think are weaknesses? And then he shows up as a rookie. And now look, he's got a Shanahan scheme, which was hot at that time, which was dialing up shot plays that were open, and it's a big part of it. But he has an excellent rookie season, and it's like, all right, maybe the Georgia game was a better indicator of what he's going to be. And then you get into last year, and especially this year, there were so many times this year, Seattle game on Monday Night Football, they had about 15 drives, 15 opportunities, and still couldn't come through against a very, very good, maybe the number 2 defense, maybe the best defense in the NFL in Seattle. You have this game against New England. I really think that the same level of extreme that you saw the last 2 weeks, where Stroud has a series of panic turnovers. I mean, just straight up awful decisions. And then yesterday, when he wasn't making an awful decision, everything was inaccurate as well. I really think this 2-game sample brings a big question about his future in Houston. I don't know if they're going to go down that path. Teams don't like uncertainty at the quarterback position, and he's shown enough good stuff that you're like, all right, he's got to be our guy going forward. You could see that discussion, but I also could see the discussion where it's like, we're one offseason away from, we got to pick up his 5th-year option. We're going to do that, but we're 1 year away from making a $50 million per year investment. And this is concerning. These last 2 games, just a 2-game sample. The same thing hurt Sam Darnold at the end of last year. 2-game sample where Minnesota had to say, I don't know. Now you could say, hey, Darnold's in the NFC Championship. They made a mistake. But Darnold's baseline over these last 2 years was way better than what Stroud's shown. And you give him, no Nico Collins, offensive line turnover, like, fine. But there were guys that were open. Even when they were open, he was missing everybody and just throwing the ball to the defense and making awful decisions for 2 straight weeks. I think it's so bad. Houston's they have to think about other options. I'm not saying they're going to, but they talk about a lot, the front office, the head coach, right? They discuss a lot of scenarios. It's scenario time in the offseason. One of the scenarios is, can we trust him? And if we can't, where are we going? And I really think just a 2-game sample might have them asking those questions in Houston.
Yeah, I would say that given what we've seen in the postseason so far, that the Patriots have not proven the, can they beat good teams thing. Sorry, I just don't think the Chargers played well with their offensive line. I don't think the Texans did. But let me just put it this way. Drake May made some great plays in this game. To go up 7-0, he dimes it up on a 3rd and 13. The pass that he makes, it's a great catch by Booty to seal it, but it's also a very good throw where only his receiver can get it. The touchdown to give them the 11-point lead, I thought that he dimed up that defense. But ultimately, are you coming away from these 2 games feeling better about their offense or their defense? Because to me, I think it's their defense that has shown more over these 2 wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, I still think Houston's the best defense in the league. Yep. And if they had gone on a run, we'd be putting them with the 2013 Seahawks, 2015 Broncos, 2002 Bucks, 2008 Steelers. That's where the Texans defense would be. If the Patriots beat up on Jarrett Stidham this week, after what they did to Herbert, what they did to Stroud, all the turnovers that they forced, and then they got Stidham next week, you're going to look back at that sample and say, well, this is one of the best defenses of all time. Look what they did. Yes. But I think a lot of that has been Herbert in the line and unforced errors from Stroud. I'm not so, it's never 100% one way or the other. Patriots defense has been very good. They did a really nice job stopping the run. They did get pressure both weeks. They did force those mistakes. But the defense has been very impressive. They deserve credit. They have the trio of corners with Carlton Davis, Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, outstanding. The pass rush, adding Milton Williams, huge factor for them. But I also would say from an offensive perspective, don't forget how bad every offense looks against the Texans. And the Patriots they had spurts where they couldn't do much, and May was, turning the ball over and wasn't great. And Will Anderson was trying to single-handedly win the game for the Texans with 2 strip sacks on Will Campbell. All of those things are true. But even just like I really thought it was a race to 21, and the Patriots having 3 touchdown drives with those big plays that you mentioned. Not many, no teams have really done that against the Texans since maybe week 2 with the Bucks when Baker Mayfield was hot. And so that was actually impressive given the circumstances, the rain, snow, the conditions. Just putting 3 touchdown drives together for the Patriots, I think, was impressive against this Texans defense, which again I think is one of the best of the last 10 to 20 years. So I don't have more confidence in the Patriots offense, but I'm not necessarily down on them just because of the perspective. I think every team woke up, like Kansas City woke up after the Texans game, is like, man, we have no offense. Every team did that. Buffalo, Allen had 5 turnovers or whatever on Thursday Night Football. Everybody woke up the next day after playing Houston, was like, our offense, we got to rethink everything. New England isn't necessarily in that spot, so I'd say that's a win for their offense this
I think
week.
that's a great point. I really do. Like the fact that they were able to move the ball 3 different times against that defense. You don't throw away the turnovers, but like, yeah, you think about the way that some of them went down and how spectacular Will Anderson was in that game.
Yeah.
You go, it is a perspective shifter. All right. Did the Bears give this away?
No. And if it's because they, went for it on 4th down and maybe didn't go for 2 when they needed to, and Caleb throws an interception, I don't think it's a giveaway necessarily.
That sounded like a giveaway when you put those 3 things down.
But the 4th down decisions, like one of the 4th down decisions led to a touchdown, right? So you can't, if you're a big like take the points, get your field goals type of person, you got to do it every single time. And so they did get 7 at one point, and then you have to factor in the field position. The reason why coaches are going for 4th downs is because of the field position as well. It's not a are you getting 3 points or 7 decision. It's, well, if you don't get 3, you're also probably getting the ball. You're probably not giving up 3 as consistently. And so I think those decisions work out over time. I think they're the underdog who needed some spectacular plays to even get there. I think the Bears lucked out a little bit that for whatever reason, Sean McVay really got out of McVay and Stafford got off kilter for a little bit to a point where they could have run the ball. I think they could have run their downhill duo scheme, won at the line of scrimmage and ran the ball really effectively. But for whatever reason, the game flow took them to 34 dropbacks and 10 runs at one point. And then they finally got back to the run, the Rams, and they put together a 14-play drive and scored the go-ahead touchdown to make it 17-10. So I think the Rams are the better team. I wouldn't say the Bears gave it away. I think they play this aggressive style, much like the Lions, that is correct and should work more over time. And maybe it's come back to bite a couple times the last couple weeks, but over time, I think that's the right way to play.
McVay, by the end of regulation, had thrown the ball 34 times, only 10 running back, only 10 runs. It was a very strange game from him. And I do think Ben Johnson thought he was going to be in a different game than he ended up being in, where his defense was getting a multitude of stops, pressuring him, getting in Matt Stafford's face, creating a ton of punts. And, they just looked like they were on fire. The only thing I would say in terms of the 4th downs, I'm with you in that we always play out the results on these things and we don't factor in the times where you get it on the 4th down. That in a game like that, given Matt Stafford's record in the snow, which was 1-9 in his last 10 in games like this, the fact that the only game that he looked horrific in this year was the coldest one he played in against Carolina, that the points did matter a little bit more. And the Caleb Williams stuff, I think that if you're a Bears fan, you're just excited because you see the high-level talent and the high-level plays he can make, and you say, man, it's sort of what we talked about with Josh Allen. If you can take the cape off for a couple of those plays and manage the game a little bit better, we might have a Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback. But I still do feel like they gave it away. Like whether or not, depending on how you feel about that interception, the final one of the game, like if it's too aggressive from Caleb or if it's a quit on the route by DJ Moore, that's a critical mistake for me. It's Ben Johnson misreading the fact that they would need those points early. It's the drops that happened in this game, of which there were like quite a few contested balls that the Bears just kind of left it on the field. And I'm coming away from it with a bit of a sour taste in my mouth if I'm a Bears fan, knowing we were the can't kill Bears. We were so close. If we just have one more field goal, we win that one. But the Rams side of it, I'm a little nervous now. This is now a decent sample of them looking meh, that I don't know if it's the same confidence that they had at the three-quarter mark of the season when everyone basically thought you could put him down in pen for the Super Bowl.
I think there are some nerves for the Rams. Stafford also gets he gets streaky, I would say, really throughout his career. It used to be like when he was in Detroit, I used to say there was 3 games a year where he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he's an all-time great like some people do. I don't think he's a top 5 or top 10 all-time quarterback, but he would always have those streaks where it's like, dude, it looks incredible, but he couldn't bottle it up and remain consistent. He's been better with the Rams, but he's streaky. And I think he's on a bad streak right now, I would say, these last few weeks. And I think the defense has shown some weakness before the weather. The weather helps, right? There's a reason why guys are dropping the ball. People are missing throws. I mean, I think the biggest giveaway for the Bears was Caleb Williams. There was a lot of open receivers he's missing. He reminded me a lot. I mean, I don't know how people remember Cam Newton's career, but I always characterize Cam Newton's career as he's not accurate overall. Like throw for throw accuracy was not there for Cam Newton, but he was aggressive, created chunk plays, threw the ball down the field, and of course they used him as a designed runner. And then the 1 year he put together that MVP caliber season where everything was just better for a year. But overall, I think Cam Newton was like above average quarterback, barely top 10 in that era. But he had all the tools to maybe put it together for that one MVP season, which he did. I'm watching Caleb Williams thinking it's the same. It's a similar idea. You don't have the design run game, but he's a great scrambler who's incredibly fast. I think we underrated his speed, but he misses so many throws. Like even just all the game winning drive attempts. It's like, wow, he just missed his wide open throw high, and then he's got the Cole Kmet play, throwing a 40-yard, 14-yard touchdown. And so that's where Caleb Williams is going to be fascinating. And for the Rams, their defense has shown some weakness in recent weeks. Stafford's been inconsistent, and I think that is definitely something to keep an eye on, where Seattle feels strong in all 3 phases outside of, seeing what happens with Darnold with the brightest lights.
Yeah.
But, the Rams definitely not as dominant as they've been, I think, or certainly were, halfway through the season.
Yeah, and listen, I'm higher on Caleb than I was coming into the playoffs, but at the end of the day, he was still 41 of 85 in the 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good enough. Again, Steve Palazzolo, host of Check the Mic Show, which you can get wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, and, of course, Amazon Music. Hey, man, thanks for making the time today. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, take care, man. Okay, so, for me, I do think the biggest winner is the Patriots. Just it's disgusting that they've been able to bounce back so quickly and be this already. And, just talking to Steve there, my perspective shifted a little bit on their offense. He's right. And I do have in my notes, but those 3 drives were unbelievable. And yes, the booty catch definitely gets all of the credit, but May made big time plays, and I had a measure of confidence in him. And their defense looks good. Maybe they're not this great because of the teams they've played, but if I'm coming out of this weekend, now you've got Jared Stidham standing in your path for a Super Bowl, but I think that they could beat either one of the teams that are going to come out of the NFC, even though I do believe that the NFC will be the Super Bowl winner this year. All right. It is Leafs game day. Score a Popeyes chicken sandwich for only $6 in classic or spicy. Make it your new game day tradition. Get your $6 chicken sandwich at a Popeyes near you. All right, my Bills fan next. So, the big news of today is that the Buffalo Bills have fired their head coach and that the Buffalo Bills once again suffered a heartbreaking postseason loss. I picked the Bills. I had money on the Bills. I was rooting for the Bills. But you heard my take on the catch, non-catch. I know some fans, listen, if you're a fan and that's the way you feel about it, that's the way you process it, that's fine. That's fine to me. I really do think that's fan goggles. And if I was just a dyed-in-the-wool Bills fan living and dying with this quarterback and that play and my heartbreak, I'd be calling out pass interferences and doing all this stuff too. So I don't think that that's loser behavior by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's just being a fan. I don't agree with the takes, but you are our resident Bills fan. You were very confident going on the weekend. Good pick, by the way, by you picking the Niners to beat the Seahawks.
Yeah,
Close.
not the best.
Yeah, that was a
best
close
choice.
one. But yeah, what's your Bills feeling today? A lot of emotions on this Monday with your coach gone, and another heartbreaker.
Yeah, a really tough day, obviously, with the loss. I mean, you talked about it with Steve a bunch. I mean, there's so many things you could talk about with this team, but definitely interested to see where they go in terms of their next head coach and what that means with how they try to fix some of the flaws on this roster. I mean, there's a lot of things you can look at, whether it's on defense or with skill positions. It's just it feels like you should feel better after a playoff loss. Usually, you're around it, but it's hard not to feel like there's a lot of questions about this team going forward.
Okay, so let me ask you this though. What's your feeling about Josh Allen after that game? Like, I'm not asking you, is he good or not, or is he choke or not, because that's all BS. Like, that's just whatever. But in terms of we all do the blame pie when something ends. So Bills fans have chosen, for the most part, anecdotal, social media, but I would say that 75% of the blame pie from that game is fans just pissed off about the officiating on that catch. And the blame pie of people that are pointing fingers at Josh Allen saying, hey, too many turnovers, and you did miss, I think it was Dawson Knox, right?
I think so, yeah, that last play.
Yeah, you missed
tough.
him, which, by the way, you want to talk about the officiating, look at that play and tell me it's not an egregious hold that prevents what could have potentially been a strip sack there. But either way, what's your Josh Allen feel today in terms of like his – are you mad at Josh Allen at all?
No, I'm not mad at him.
You guys are so afraid. You can never be mad at Josh Allen. You just never – it's everything he does is just whatever, kiss his feet.
No, I mean, I definitely am not kissing his feet after that game. You brought up the multiple issues there. I think the play before the first half ended was obviously, I think you can obviously say a tough decision by the coaching staff to try to get some yards there. I'm not sure if they were really thinking they could push forward and get a field goal or something at the end of the half, but just his decision making to have the ball just so willy-nilly in his hand basically throws it away. Like he definitely made some errors there that cost them the game, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. But I still feel good having him as the quarterback, as the best player going forward. So I think you kind of go back and forth, and I think the further away we get from this game, the better we'll feel. But you're right in that there's definitely some things you look back and James Cook, I think, is kind of skating through this too. Like I was telling Armin, that first fumble I think it was right after the second quarter started. The Bills are up 7-3, and they're going down. They're about to score. If it's 14-3 in the first half, that game is completely different. Instead, the Broncos get the ball. They go down. They score. They take the lead. And I think from there, the Bills were kind of chasing. So, I mean, you can look a couple different ways. I think McDermott's probably getting too much of the blame on this one.
So what I would say is this is an ultimate just what-if game for the Bills, and that's the most heartbreaking one of all, where there's just so many different spots in a game that you point to and go, oh, God, what if this, what if that, what if that? And that's why I'm doing less on the catch, because I do think it was an interception, and I think that the penalties were penalties.
Yeah.
And so I don't view those much. I think that Josh Allen has the biggest what-ifs, and yes, you're right to bring up the Cook one, but that's the tough one for me, is when you're a Super Bowl contender and you've got that path in front of you, yeah, you're allowed to feel frustrated at your quarterback without feeling like you're turning on the guy. Anyway, it is Leafs game day, which means you can score a Popeyes chicken sandwich for only $6 in classic or spicy. Make it your new game day tradition. Get your $6 sandwich at a Popeyes near you. We'll see you tomorrow with Jim Bowden and Ernie Clement. Big Baseball Show.